Great. So, of course, it says fireside chat. We don't have any fire right now, other than this. I hope all of us have that. What we say, fire in the belly about building things. That for sure we have. And post this, of course, our chat, we will open up for a few questions from the audience as well. Yeah. So in between, if you have any question, please note it down. Keep it ready. Post this, we will take up questions. So we have been talking about GPUs already, and how as we'll speak about how GPUs have evolved already far beyond what was the original purpose, which few of you might know. When the original purpose of GPUs was actually it was launched for gaming, but now we see it entering everywhere. So how have you seen at Rakuten? Where did it start at Rakuten in terms of GPUs? When did it start? How was it? Where did that trigger came? Where did that trigger come that you should use GPUs now at Rakuten?
So in some ways, the evolution of GPUs at Rakuten is very similar to the evolution of GPUs at my home. Initially, my son wanted the next biggest GPU so that he could play more and more complex games, Microsoft games and so on. So he's always researching 4060 NVIDIA, 4070, 4090, and so on. And then he also started, I think, to answer his history classes and so on, he needed ChatGPT to run locally and things like that. So he started using it for AI and things like that. So in some ways, it's very similar, right? As in, Rakuten, because of the diversity of the company, we have 70 plus businesses. There's always been hard problems to solve, whether it is commerce, financial services, healthcare, banking, and so on. So we have always been using AI even before LLM days. Right? It could be image recognition. For example, we do face-based payments in Japan. Right? You walk into a 7-Eleven store, and Rakuten does Rakuten payments. So you no longer have to use your card. You show your face, it recognizes you.
Wow.
And all the payment systems, whether it's credit card, we have something called RPay, which is similar to UPI, peer-to-peer, all of that. It'll automatically deduct money and just walk out of the 7-Eleven without having to stand in line to pay for the cashier, things like that. So we've always been using AI for many different areas, fraud detection, things of that nature, complex ones. But I think what sort of broke the camel's back is all the things that we have seen in LLMs, particularly around natural language, conversational AI, which we use for customer support. We built our own mobile business, and we were spending like almost between $10 to $20 million a month on call center support, because there's a lot of calls coming in, right? Both pre-purchase, post-purchase. And Japan is a very, folks need to talk to each other. It's a very people-to-people society.
Very much like India.
Yeah, exactly. So now with chatbots, things like that, and with natural language capabilities, it's made some seminal impact to business. And so we needed a lot of GPUs to tackle all these different, whether it's mathematical, matrix multiplication issues, image issues, or now text and language. That's how it has evolved for us.
Great. And would you want to place in terms of timeline, like when was the point in time when GPUs were first used at Rakuten? How long back does it go?
I think the first wave was probably about 5 years ago, like around COVID, and the second wave has been the last year.
Yeah. So around AI again, whenever we talk about success, now the impact, etc., we think always in terms of efficiency, that it will drive more efficiency, it will bring down the costs, or that speed that it's bringing to. But if you have to think in terms of the human impact or the impact on humanity in general, how would you measure the impact on people's lives in general?
Yeah. Great question. And, I just, there are so many different dimensions in which AI can have a phenomenal effect on people, right? I mean, you start something with healthcare and life sciences itself. This is an area that you are very close to. The impact that AI can have in terms of finding the right drug. In fact, recently AI has been used to create new types of antibiotics, given the increase in antibiotic resistant bacteria, right? That means you have to run so many permutation combinations to arrive at. There's no way humanly it is possible to do things like that. Robotics is an area that also has significant effect on quality of life of people, particularly as you look at aging populations like Japan and other countries where people are either single or they're two older people at home in their 70s, 80s, 90s. And then, we are now looking at Elon Musk is looking at, robots that do day-to-day work. But Japan has always had robots in the last, decade or so, which is at home with people. It actually picks people up, takes it up the stairs if they can't walk. There's a lot of psychological issues because when people are older and they don't have friends and family nearby, they get into mental depression and things like that. So robots actually sing and talk, watch movies together, make it interactive. So people are generally more positive. So there is tremendous sort of help there on the healthcare, lifestyle, life sciences. Secondly, in all of these things like self-driving cars, automation in general, right? Robots in manufacturing is just phenomenal. Thirdly, on even just economy in general, right? Ideally, you want your citizens to be doing higher productivity, higher value add, higher economic output work. So if even simple things like OpenAI can automate out a lot of the manual work, your team can now do better things. See, it's not like jobs will be lost. It's just that you have now unleashed your team to do more and more important things. Just like, for example, in our own, I'll give you an example in our HR team, right? A lot of the questions they get from employees is just policy related.
Yeah.
Right? So an HR person, instead of doing strategic things, if they're just answering policy related question as to, hey, is my cat surgery for my cat included in my insurance, right? Just talk now. Our HR team has released a policy based HR chatbot. You can talk to it, it'll scan through all the documents, come back, give you a summarize. Yeah, your surgery is included.
Interesting.
For up to 25,000 rupees, something like that. So now HR can solve other more complex, challenges coming their way every day. So it can help in day-to-day things. So I personally feel it has tremendous impact on quality of human life, on productivity, economics. Again, for a country like India where there is a huge export-import gap, right? We import more than we export. So there is a balance of payment, huge difference. I think AI is something where, it's human brain. The more innovation that we come in and the more we sell, we export. In fact, when I was talking to Jensen, when he was there at the NVIDIA summit in Mumbai, he said going forward in 5 years, so most developed economies will just be building more and more AI agents, smart AI agents, and exporting them. Right. So I see tremendous potential in terms of country, people.
Great. That's as I see it, maybe that's what AI is going to do, and then probably if the way you described it, that it's going to free people up from mental drudgery or the physical drudgery or the tasks which they hate to do.
Correct.
To maybe it'll start freeing up time for stuff that they would love to do. Okay, so now that we see that kind of GPUs have become the backbone of innovation, given all of the AI that's being developed across all industries, and I came to know, I had a session with the Rakuten team around. So how do you see what Rakuten is doing on AI and AI ops there? Has there been any impact of GPUs directly, indirectly, or any pleasant surprises or challenges?
See, broadly at Rakuten, I'll give you at a very meta level, we use AI in 4 different dimensions. Pillar 1 is AI for business. our customers who are businesses themselves, for our merchants, for our own business teams, so on and so forth. Then there is AI for employees, and I just spoke to you, gave you one example about our HR and so on. We also use AI for code optimization. Code reviews is now, we've used a tool called Cody, for example, right? So instead of spending time doing code reviews, we basically send it off to Cody. It does all the code review, comes back and gives you even better code.
That's an internal tool.
Internal tool. That even better tool. We use both external and internal tool. I think Cody is external, but we also have internal tools.
Okay.
It'll come back and tell you where all you can optimize, or in some cases suggest better code than you've written yourself. Not that an engineer will be happy about that. So that's low-hanging fruit, productivity, AI for employees, right? Third, AI for consumers, which is, if you look at it, we have got 40,000 merchants, but we have 40 million shoppers on Rakuten's Ichiba, which is our e-commerce platform. For the merchant side, it's all about business, right? A merchant might come in and say, hey, what is the latest clothing I should be selling this quarter or next quarter? What are some of the latest trends? Can you tell me what should I procure, manufacture, and how much should I stock? That's demand, supply, trending, design, patterns, everything. That's a business focused. Consumer focused, we were talking earlier, semantic search, right? These days, consumers come in and ask for, hey, I'm going to the Coldplay concert, suggest a dress that makes me look cool, right? Our search engine was built 20 years ago. It doesn't know what cool means. If you had asked this thing a few years ago, it'll probably show a cool, a menthol-based aftershave or something, right? Whereas today, by using AI to build semantic search, we will actually come and give a dress that appeals to Gen Z, that they can wear to a Coldplay concert.
Yeah, so it's no more like, that probably I can even include myself now. I'm 40 plus now. So, like my generation, yeah, when you used to look for it, it used to be, I'm looking for a shirt.
Correct.
Yeah, now it's like, no, as you said, it's like, it's all about, okay, I'm going to this party, here, and how suggest me something. It's gone to that level. It's no more simply about buying a specific thing. It's about having that whole experience.
Yeah. So that is for the consumers, and the last frontier is AI for operations. Which is where AI ops comes in, right? See, at our scale, when we mean business, all of our business is thousands of microservices or hundreds of applications that are running the business, right? And anything can go wrong here. Productivity, performance, security, data integrity, data quality. And at that scale, at our scale, there is no way we could manually solve this. Even we can't put 1,000 SREs to go solve when, let's say, Rakuten's website becomes slow for the next 10 minutes. And believe me, if Rakuten's website either becomes even 50% slow or shuts down for 10 minutes, probably $400, $500 million of top line sales just gone. So we can't afford to risk such things anymore. So we built our own AI ops using GPUs, where it goes, not only is it makes triage easy, right? So it just looks at the logs, and you don't even need the metrics. It looks at the logs, looks at the metrics, automatically does dependency mapping, and figures out that what actually showed up as a slowness in your application was actually because of a 10-year-old Fujitsu load balancer in our data center. What it did was it just didn't balance the load properly, and instead of sending it to multiple different servers, it sent everything to the same server that couldn't handle the load. Imagine how many engineers and how many days it would have taken to debug this. With our AI ops, we can figure this out in 2 minutes. And not only is it sort of retrospective, we've also built in predictive capabilities. Because we exposed data to it over the last 1 to 3 years. It knows that come Christmas, come January, there is always a sale happening. There is a Singles Day sale that goes on in August or September. So traffic goes up 5x because there's all kinds of deals going on our website. So it knows how to basically, it'll now send an advisory to our IT manager and say, you have to add more memory, more storage, more CPUs. Because last time you kept the same, the hardware resources the same, during the singles day sale as it was during the last, normal days, and you had catastrophic events. You can't do it. So it'll think on your behalf and tell our ops team how to solve for it. And this gives us tremendous advantages. And this product actually, because it worked so well for us, we had our own AWS moment, and we've taken this externally to market. It's called 6sense. So it's purely an AI-based IT ops product. And we said, the goodness that we have seen at our scale, why don't we take it to market and help others as well? And so these are some of our experiences.
So this is very interesting. This is very a good example of, and typically at an enterprise, especially at the size of Rakuten, I can imagine that initially this would have been a build versus buy decision, wherein, of course, given the size and given the resources, you could have easily bought something off the shelf and something, but instead, and I was sitting with the team. The team said that there were certain gaps, and that's where internally the team said that maybe we should build something. And I think that whole building it initially, dog fooding it internally, and then coming to the realization that this is good and this can help others. I think this whole journey, you see that it got accelerated by having those resources, especially GPUs internally, or do you think even if it had not been there, you'd still be going ahead?
See, definitely having GPUs, particularly from the perspective of using stronger AI algorithms. For example, in one of the AI ops product, so we use this model called TFT. So TFT is basically LLM with numbers. Just like how you predict text, we predict what event can happen in the future based on past. So it needs hardcore machine crunching and so on. Could we have done it with just CPUs and so on? Possibly like a test and a pilot, things like that. But I think having access to GPUs, having access for our teams to go experiment really help. In fact, even before we went with using GPU farms, both within the company as well as external GPU such as Amazon or Google, we just told our engineers, go buy your own GPU systems.
I saw it. So I saw the GPU sitting on the desk, and Madan was actually telling me that
Correct.
that we made sure that every engineer just gets their own GPU.
Correct. So those kind of things helped a lot because we want our engineers to innovate, right? Bottoms up innovation is extremely important. And for that, you will have to give them the space to innovate, experiment, fail.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll change the track slightly, going more into because how I see it is getting to the AI magic. There are three parts to it: people, data, and compute. So we spoke about the compute. I would want more to speak around the people part. So, given your journey, the intersection of technology, business, and when we spoke last time, you said that inherently you still feel more like an engineer than anything, and we have been. You have led multiple companies and such innovative companies. What's your view on the people and the leadership side? Like when you are looking to get a leader on board or to create a leader internally, what is it that you look for, especially given it's such a fast changing tech environment?
Yeah. So we look for a quality in a leader, at least 2-3 qualities in our leadership, right? Both when we hire as well as when we grow. And that's one is what I call boundaryless leadership. As organizations grow larger and more complex, what happens is generally people, their frame of reference becomes more narrower. For example, I'm a engineering guy, I'm a product guy, I'm a business guy, I'm a finance guy, or I'm a supply chain guy. Now the challenge is large complex problems rarely can be solved in silos. It'll usually be an intermix of multidimensional skills that are needed for the company to succeed. So usually we really take a bet on people who can be so boundaryless. For example, today you may have to build something. Tomorrow you have to go assess the value of acquiring a company. That means you have to understand P&L, you have to understand valuation. You can't say that's for a finance team to do. Otherwise, if you do that, you're outsourcing your destiny to somebody else, right? You will have to solve some issue in procurement. Maybe the chips from NVIDIA are not coming fast enough, right? Go do a deal with Saudis or somebody so that you get some special chips, at least for the next 6 months.
That happened a lot, and I can imagine that happened a lot in between.
Correct. I see you as an entrepreneur, I think by DNA, by the nature of the things you do, will be a boundaryless leader. But in large companies like us, it becomes comfortable to put yourself in silos because we have so many resources, right? And that is what leads to inefficiency. So first thing is boundaryless leaders. And then second is leaders who can zoom in and zoom out as needed. Right? Take a bigger picture, strategy, long-term view, but they also can solve problems down in the trenches. I mean, we have leaders in our company who have 25, 30 years of experience, who can still write code, who can do code reviews, but they can also be in a strategy discussion talking about, which path do we go take this company, right? So that's zoom in and zoom out. And finally, a lot of emotional quotient, right? I think end of the day, you're dealing with people, with aims, with aspirations. They're not machines, they're not robots. Particularly in situations like this where AI is automating a lot of things. So kind of how do you get everybody together, focused on one problem, and then get things done. And part of that is also being highly self-driven. Leaders, my favorite thing I tell my people is, I can do my best to put more oil to the fire that's already burning inside you. But I can't light the fire in you.
Yeah.
Only you can do that.
True.
So that self-drive needs to be there, right? I want to make big things happen. So this is another aspect we look for. Again, all of this we take for granted in entrepreneurs like yourself because you started it because the fire was so strong. But in large companies, how do you sustain that fire over a 30-year career? So those are all important things for us. Actually, I want to ask you a question on that topic, right? As you built Innoplexus into a leading AI-driven life sciences company, what have been sort of your guiding philosophy navigating both as a business leader as well as a technologist embracing AI and GPUs and so on?
So for us, right from the start, one thing we have been inherently quite arrogant on one thing, that yes, we will solve hard problems. Yeah. So and time and again we have been put to test, wherein we really had to ask ourselves, do we still want to continue on solving hard problems and not do a lot many other things which are relatively easier, and choose that path? Whether again, for different outcomes, outcome could be that at one point of a time we were actually asked by certain investors that why are you doing life sciences? It will take at least 7-8 years before you even get initial results. Why don't you pick up food tech or e-com and anything? And nothing against those businesses. Those businesses are great. It's just that we have been very clear that there's only limited time in your life, and with that, what is that hard problem that we want to solve? And in our case, in life sciences and health, that's been a personal topic as well. So the trigger to start itself was when we saw my partner Gunjan's mentor and friend go through the journey of cancer. When I saw one of my relatives go through that, and that's where we said, okay, this is something which we need to do. And And all this journey, we have lost dear ones. Like I lost my first mentor. He was a very senior IIT Bombay alumnus himself, a very famous entrepreneur. We lost him to pancreatic cancer. It was so sudden, we couldn't do anything. I lost my younger brother, my cousin brother, who used to work with us in Innoplexus only for a long time. So Gunjan and I, he was like a family, for Gunjan as well. Again, we could not do anything, much. Gunjan lost his father in like with me losing my brother and then losing his father. It happened just within 6 months, and that's where again, it comes back to us that okay, we are. It's not just about like that. Yeah, we can do. There's a lot that can be done, or that we are not doing this to make money. We have to make money so that we can solve this problem. Right? Because this problem is just that most of the people that we have spoken to really just said that a lot of people just give up on this journey. And we have seen a lot of startups fail, a lot of founders give up because it is hard. It is extremely hard. It has factors which are simply beyond your hand, beyond your control as well. But I think we are in a very interesting time now, where a lot of these things which we had been predicting internally that this will happen, it's now happening. So that's where we see really that the light at the end of the tunnel. Now we really see that it's much closer. We are at an inflection point where a lot of these problems really, just within 5 years, entire life science healthcare is going to witness a huge revolution. And that's what drives us. And that's where we see that. And again, coming back, I always tell my team members as well, see, we are all engineers. Our job is to solve problems. Right? And if as long as we see problems, we have to find out innovative ways to solve these problems. And being an Indian team, there is always one more factor in that solution is how can we do it at 1/10 of the cost that everybody else is doing.
So from that perspective, do I see a Indian DeepSeek looming within your purview? And
Oh, very much. We have taken up that challenge. We are working on a foundation model ourselves, which is going to be one of its kind, uh, world's first real world data model, which will be able to accelerate everything that we are seeing in life sciences and healthcare AI. Okay, so now my turn. uh, in your experience, I'm sure all these many years and decades, you would have come across moments uh, where just uh, technology and business would not simply align. It's like you would see that from a tech perspective there is a path, but then from a business side, probably that there's a different path that is being that you see, or somehow these two paths seem completely opposite to each other, or if not opposite, at least they don't seem to converge. So one, if you have
Sure.
if you have come across these such moments, if you can talk about it, and how do you then take decisions in such scenarios?
Yeah. See, I'll give sort of two paradigms of how we think when we come with situations like this, right? Paradigm one is when it comes to technology itself, how we look at technology. We have evolved as a company from many, many years ago, where technology was an enabler of business. The second transformation to technology, great business is an outcome of great technology, to now technology is the business.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this has been a multi-decade long journey and realization for us, because a lot of the business leaders who are not necessarily born into this AI era, where business is primary, right? Technology has always been an enabler. You look at a lot of the companies, whether it's Amazon or anybody else who came in, it was business first. How do I sell more? And then how do I use tech for that? They ended up with AWS, where tech is the business. We have gone through that same evolution. So everybody will reach that point in their, depending on how long you have been, what kind of scale you're achieving. So that is one paradigm. Second paradigm is whenever there is, a tie break needs to be done in between technology and business, there has to be a third entity, and that is customer for us. Customer is king, customer always wins. I'll give a very simple example that might reiterate that point. Just recently, as I told you, we had to do semantic search, for e-commerce. But then there was no sort of the existing OpenAI. And so first of all, this was a couple of years ago, there was no Japanese language LLM.
Yeah.
And there was no LLMs that were e-commerce flavored. Right here, this is not a generic LLM. People don't come to a Rakuten's website and ask what's the weather in Madikeri tomorrow. Right? They are going to say, like I said, give me a supplement that helps me with blood pressure.
Correct.
Or whatever. Give me a shoes that's animal cruelty free. So we realized there was a room to build our own LLM that is Japanese language, that's also e-commerce and few of our business focused. It's an industry specific LLM. And there was a lot of debate where business was like, hey, why do I need to invest in this? Because this is millions of dollars, right? And then that's where we had to take it. Why don't we just use OpenAI? All of this came in, right? And the tiebreaker there was, are we doing the right thing for our customers, both near term and long term, right? Are we going to be useful to them? Are we going to be able to serve them? Are they going to be able to be loyal to us for the longer term? If so, this is the right thing to do because no other solution exists. And so we made the investments needed, even though it was an unattractive decision at that point. Similar to this whole DeepSeek situation where somebody has already built it, why don't you take it? So that's how we resolved it. I hope that gives you a flavor.
And it's in this journey again of both being an entrepreneur, innovator. Everybody, of course, talks about innovation, and one part of the innovation is to build something groundbreaking and new. In that, what do you see the hardest part of this whole thing? Is it coming up with an unique idea? Is it executing it well, or is it something else?
See, I think all of them are important, but the hardest, execution is, of course, very, very important, right? Innovative ideas, product market fit, all are important. I think if you take the hardest part out of all of that, from my perspective, it is the will to sustain, like you mentioned before. Because the 0 to 1, of course, is very, very hard. Validating a product, making sure there is a product market fit, making sure there's value for this, taking it to a level where it's production grade out in the market, that itself is extraordinarily painful because you have to overcome a lot of frictions within the org, outside the org, people, org, culture, tech, so many things. That's the first hardest part. The second hardest part is that 1 to 2, which is how do you now scale this? Right? And once you go to the market, you may realize over some point that I can't scale it as it is. I'll have to pivot. Maybe the product needs a new flavor. Maybe I need a new customer base. Maybe I need an additional adjunct product along with this to add on top so I can appeal to a broader customer base. How is my message hitting the customers? Do I have a marketing issue? Do I have a messaging issue? So that sort of scaling, it becomes now the second hardest part. And underlying all of this is the will to sustain. Because there'll be if you have a 10-year view, every year you're going to hit a couple of times where all your hypotheses, everything will go for a toss. Yeah. Do you have the will to sustain? I think that is what separates people who succeed versus people who give up. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of entrepreneurs, right? Because in larger companies, you have a machinery that's already running. You're taking there's so much tailwind that I can just ride off the tailwind. But you have no tailwind. You have to create it. So I would say that is the hardest part. Right.
Now, in this, again, you spoke about scaling, right? So, again, um, like how we scaled as is very different. I always say that how we have seen elsewhere and what even the team used to tell me always, because simply, yeah, we never had the luxury of throwing money
Yeah.
or even throwing people at problem. We always had to come up with things wherein, yes, either a lot of many times, and I relate that with Rakuten as well. A lot many times when you at Rakuten as well, a lot of things have been built, right? Not simply buying over and and then scaling up and so on. But here. When you talk about scaling technologies like AI and especially around again GPUs, scaling the usage of GPUs in a large organization, how do you do it while still maintaining a culture of innovation and agility, such that people don't get complacent. That you mentioned, it's a large organization, so it's always easier just to say, fine, I'll use X, or I'll buy this, or I'll do this. How do you ensure that still?
See, you're right. See, initially, when you come up with a new idea, right, you don't necessarily have to, I think you'll have to decouple the complexity of the technology from the use case. Uh, for example, one of the things is we wanted to introduce chatbots with our AI ops solutions.
Okay.
Where, a CIO or somebody who's responsible for the production, performance of all of their software will want to come in, use our AI ops, and we wanted to add a chat-based interface. For example, they will come into the chatbot and say, hey, my Rakuten travel website was non-responsive for 6 minutes yesterday at 7 p.m. What happened?
Interesting.
As opposed to, I don't want to go look at 25 screens and correlate myself. Now, because we have AI ops built in, it does autocorrelation and causation and all of that. It has that information, right? So it comes back, and then the chatbot puts it into a conversational language. It comes back and tells, yeah, your Oracle DB licenses we only had it for like 40 million instances or whatever, that customers hitting it. We doubled, so we never had the licenses. So Oracle crumbled. So you need to get more Oracle licenses. Okay. Now this is great. Now the question is, people wanted LLM OpenAI license for this. This is 1 year ago when OpenAI was extremely expensive, like $30, $40 for a few, couple of million tokens or something like that. We didn't have the budget to give this out to anybody who wanted to try something new. So we then told them, okay, can you do a CPU? Can you do an SLM? B, run it with CPU temporarily. When you achieve the scale where you've got hundreds, dozens of customers and thousands of transactions, we will get you the GPU and LLM and so on, because we'll also be making revenue there.
Okay.
Till I get there, you deep seek your way out of it, meaning you write efficient stuff.
Yeah.
You narrow down the use case. You do a little bit of jugaad, but you prove the use case, and that worked for us. So that's kind of how we navigate things.
So how I read it is, as it's always doesn't matter, whether it's a startup or a large enterprise. I think innovation needs constraints.
Absolutely. Because then you can also allow for a lot more bottoms-up ideas to come up without necessarily spending your way out of it. And that's no solution at all.
So moving on, so we spoke about everything great that GPUs are bringing in, but of late, of course, conversations are around all sorts of challenges. Uh, Now that Nvidia has also accelerated their release cycles, so they are coming up with newer chips even faster. Uh, and of course, the prices will never go down, probably. It will always go up. So issues like costs, rising costs, compatibility with the legacy system, given that, yes, by the time you uh, get the current generation, there is already a new one, and by the time you are going into production, probably that's outdated. So legacy systems again, and integration issues with everything that's going on, and in the same when you are trying to again scale, all of these different systems. So how do you deal with all of these issues at scale? Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's no magic bullet to this. This is a general, large scale problem, but I think a lot of goodness can still continue in your organization. To my previous point, right? About SLM based chatbots and so on. As long as you're innovating in the application layer, where you don't necessarily have very tight dependencies on the models and hardware, I think there is a path for both to coexist. What I mean is your existing business can continue to be innovate despite hardware constraints, as long as you're innovating in the application space, from a user experience space, in the consumer space. While looking at, okay, what other new large investments do I need to do in GPUs and hardware and foundational models for the next 5 to 10 years? Now, unfortunately, the way the AI space is evolving and GPU is evolving, there is no 5 to 10 years model you can even put into this.
Yeah.
Which is why I would say I personally don't like to be very reactive to things. Today it's DeepSeek. Tomorrow again, then there's there's O1 model, right? That came out 2 days ago.
Quen again, Alibaba also released. And
So that is great, because as long as the foundational model guys are all disrupting each other, the applications guys are going to continue to benefit. So focus on the app, focus on the user experience, keep, and be very truthful to your business model and your mission. If you're doing that, you can still achieve a lot of things without necessarily, and yeah, you'll have to keep thinking about, do I have the next $50, $100 million investment in the next NVIDIA GPUs, whatever, H200 or B200, but that's a longer term play. I think they'll both coexist.
But at the same time, with these challenges, how do you keep the teams motivated? With these, because every time I used to hear always, like, the team always used to say, "Oh, we need GPUs, we need this, we need." And same to your point, what you mentioned, like the license to Chat GPT, this model, that. So every time the demands are there, and when you are trying to again placate one and not the other, and say, fine, there are constraints, you figure out, but how does it play in terms of keeping the team motivated at the same time, and that they don't start feeling that, fine, you are not being heard, or probably the company does not care enough for innovation?
See, I have a placard in my office that says, "Don't come to me with problems, come with solutions." Engineers being engineers, product people, I think if you throw enough challenges at them, right, that even in a constrained environment, how can you solve these problems? They will solve it. So I don't necessarily see that, as long as the problem statement you give them is big enough, motivating enough, challenging enough. Secondly, customer empathy. See, one of the things we have done is we have connected engineers, product managers, even our finance people to our customers. So they sense,
even the finance folks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because then they will have empathy. That how does empathy for customers even develop? If you look at Satya Nadella's book, I think it's called Reboot, which he wrote.
Hit refresh.
Hit refresh.
Yeah.
Couple of years ago.
Yes.
The primary essence of that is customer empathy.
Yep.
And that works here as well, right? You expose enough of our team to our end customers. They will now, once that emotional connect is very, very strong, they'll figure out ways to give. No amount of pep talk I give is going to work. They have to be motivated by the problem statement. And you expose them to customers, you paint a large enough vision for them and a longer term view. I think they will find a way to be motivated and go solve those things.
Yeah, I can relate to it, because at our place, of course, I've been saying the same thing, that, see, if the thought of saving 1 million lives doesn't motivate you enough, I don't know what else will. I can't do anything else to motivate.
Absolutely.
I think when team is able to really understand that that impact of what they are doing. It's not that yes, you are just one of those engineers writing something and you don't know what's going to happen. It's like whatever you are doing is directly
Absolutely.
impacting people's
Absolutely.
lives.
Absolutely.
So we spoke about costs, and one of the major factors now again that people have been talking about everywhere, right? Or even at World Economic Forum, it was raised that the issues around all the gigantic power that GPUs are going to take, and so hence the talk around sustainability. Uh, so in all of these, that when you are using GPUs and everything, how are you ensuring that it still is sustainable in a way, or it's not really the way you scale or continue scaling up further, it's not going to be detrimental to the environment.
Sure. See, there are a lot of things we do from a green and sustainability perspective, and not only for GPUs, but in our data centers as well, because we realize the amount of emissions that data centers do, is not necessarily great for the environment. So, in fact, our procurement process itself for our data centers to build our own in-house data center, we've got like 20 plus data centers globally, right?
Do you have data centers in India?
Not in India.
Okay.
We have it in Singapore and then Europe, US, Japan, multiple. So everything from at least 10 to 15% has to be solar power data centers, right? To even procuring different pieces of equipment, servers and so on. We only procure green and efficient systems. In fact, our data centers in Japan are earthquake proof.
Well, I have to be. I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things we do is, there is a layer of hot oil at the bottom because when the earthquake happens, if it's on solid ground, the structure will collapse. Here, the supporting structures, if they're on oil, they just move like this.
Wow.
Right? And also it reduces the friction with those structures. They are on spindle. So the reason we do all of these things is that we can't afford an earthquake breaking things down and we go rebuild, put cement, everything and rebuild these data centers. Right? So just some examples and also efficient architectures. See, I think the reason why everybody's gung-ho about DeepSeek is that they just didn't do all of the training and inferencing and everything that the host LLM had to do, right? Or OpenAI had to do. They just leveraged what was there.
Correct.
And in fact, I was joking with my team that this just feels like Ekalavya, Dronacharya situation where they just, looked at how OpenAI is responding, use that, and at a tenth of the cost and a tenth of the power, they build their system. So we do a lot of that. In fact, as I told you, one of the tools, Cody AI, which is actually a third-party tool, we also use it for recommendations on efficient algorithms, efficient systems, efficient architecture. And how do I do lesser GPUs? See, just because DeepSeek came out and let's say the workload got by 1/10, A is good for environment, but it's actually not bad for the GPU business because a 10x more businesses and customers will want to use AI and GPUs because it is so much cheaper. Right? And that's how innovation has scaled. So we have a very similar approach to an environment-friendly, approach. On that front, right? I would like to hear your views on how digits, from NVIDIA, which is basically putting the power of AI and high-end compute in the hand of the end consumer, as well as DeepSeek, and how do you see them from an efficiency, accessibility, sustainability perspective, and how does some of these things flow through you guys as well as you look at your next breakthrough?
I really see, so there isn't much that has been spoken about digits right now. It got released and Jensen released it in the CS, but how I see it, it is really one of those moments where it's down the line, it's going to be the equivalent of what Bill Gates had said, like putting a desktop on every desk, really putting a computer on every desk. It has a potential to get to that scale that everything that we think in terms of the compute and in terms of building AI, it's again going to see a big shift in next couple of years when people actually start having these systems on their desk. There's a lot that's going to change, and what we see is DeepSeek is actually just the start. uh, I have always been a believer, and I was telling the team as well, that see, the innovation when it happens, and when disruption happens, it happens precisely at the time when everybody will say that oh, the standards are set, there isn't much to do now, this is how it is. That's precisely when such a disruption will happen, always. And like for example, even with us, like we have been crawling the web at large scale for almost a decade, and and when we really started hitting the cloud bills, that's when we had to seriously question that uh, uh, if we are looking at such a scale, can we continue spending such an insane amount of money? Right? And we really went back to the dashboard, and we thought about, okay, what is it? And literally the first principle thinking that, okay, what is it that we need? Where is that cloud, and where is the bill? Why is it? What's happening? What is it that we are using in cloud? And the end result was that, fine, in the end, what you need is actually bandwidth for crawling. It's because it does not require intensive CPU usage. It requires a lot of memory and requires bandwidth. And what we did was we shifted the entire crawling workload from cloud to on-prem using a cluster of Raspberry Pis. Raspberry Pi is just this small a board. And if you think about it, like we brought down the expense like from hundreds of thousands to like a few $1,000s, and that to wherein if we measure in terms of impact to the environment, whatever that was happening at the cloud, with such kind of a power usage, here Raspberry Pi barely takes any power. I don't even need cooling. Right, I can place it just it here, and it'll continue. And the resilience that is like, fine, if your Raspberry Pi board, this, if it burns, fine, I can just place another one. It hardly costs anything. So these are the kind of solutions which you see is it's actually we need to think about. And as Innoplexus, we have been in this mode only, continuously innovating. So we, again, as you said, right, we don't think in terms of the box that I am a developer, I'm a software developer, I'm this, I'm that, right? If we have to solve a problem, we have to solve. Fine. If we think the better solution is with going a level deeper and maybe tinkering with the hardware, we'll do it. GPUs, we have tinkered at that level. That's why I'm happy that finally people are realizing what DeepSeek did was going a level deeper, working at the PTX level, tinkering with how the communication between the chips is happening, working at that lower language level. Was it not possible? No, it was possible. That's how they did it. It's simply people didn't think of it. Nobody think of why they had to do it, because they had the constraint. They could not get more GPUs. So they had, so okay, this is the problem we have to solve. Now I think now with that, at least now more and more people should think about that whatever that you have, how can you get the maximum out of it?
Yeah.
Right? If they can go a level deeper and work with a low level language and tinker with the architecture itself and make it run much more in an efficient way, everybody can, right? So I think that's what we need to think of, that there are solutions. And the DeepSeek impact, I see, as you already said, that it's actually going to drive now the GPU usage to a bigger extent, because Nvidia typically has been looking at that, all of it. The major customers have been only the large ones, because those were the ones who could spend hundreds of millions. They were themselves, figuring out that, okay, how do we get this long tail, all of these enterprises, all of these customers who don't have hundreds of millions of dollars, but they have like between a million to a 10 million, right? What is it that they can? Now I think it's very clear that fine, everybody can build. You
Yep.
don't with even that kind of a budget, you can build your own models, and that is the approach that all of us should be taking. At least if not for everything, I'm not saying that for start building general purpose a chat GPT kind of thing, but for to solve your own problem, right? If you want to remain in control, I think that's a better approach.
Cool. It's very good.
To close the sustainability topic again, as we are moving and there's so much that's happening, do you think that is it possible to have that strike that balance between business, sustainable innovation, sustainability, and how do you put it at or can it be put at the core of business strategy itself?
See, one is I think there are two parts to it. One is culturally inculcating sustainability as a culture in the organization, and two is having the right tools and systems in place. By culture, I'll give you an example. Most of you are probably here are younger to even relate to this. But when I first started off, I started my journey in a company called Qualcomm. You guys might know about it. It's a 4G, 5G, it's a wireless telecom innovator. They came up with CDMA, WCDMA. Yeah. Modern day telecom owes everything to Qualcomm. And I was an embedded software engineer. And again, when you're an embedded engineer, the most striking thing that hits you is you're in a world of constraints. Right? Just because you wrote your system software on a PC, you transfer that software you tested to a mobile phone, you have 1/10 to 1/50th memory, 1/50th the CPU, and so on. There, we would have a training from within the company. I'll give you one example. The level to which sustainable thinking we used to do 25 years ago, most of you know that when you write a for loop, right? What is the most simple thing? For I equals 0 to I less than 100, I plus plus, boom, boom, you close the loop. Did you know that if you reverse that, and if the same for loop, if you said for I equals 100 to I greater than 0, I minus minus, takes one less machine instruction at the assembly language level.
Wow.
Because apparently to do addition, and this was on an ARM7, it takes 2 instructions because you have to get the program counter has to get stuff from memory, bring it to the register, add it, and send it back. It's subtraction, it's in-memory reduction. So it's one less assembly language instruction. Right. So they would go look at to see if you were doing I++ or I minus minus to look at sustainability from a power, speed, and also in embedded systems, that one assembly instruction by the time you execute will get an interrupt from your 4G receiver, 3G receiver, somewhere else from some other, DSP, we have digital signal processor that's interrupting. So every single machine instruction was valuable. So I worked in an environment where that was a culture in the company because it mattered. These days, because people have money to spend, it's like, oh, you want to write an LLM to ask what the weather is? Let me invest $500 million in GPUs, right? This is unsustainable. Pretty soon, everybody will run out of money if we do this. Okay. So sustainability as a culture is just going to happen as soon as this party is over. Secondly, you have to systemize it. I don't know if you got a chance to talk to our team. We have a tool which is called Gen I, like the eye of Sauron. Yeah. It looks at, same thing happened to us when we said, oh, OpenAI, use it. My team probably doesn't know. For the first 3 months, we got a $500,000 bill because everybody and his cousin is using OpenAI to test it. A finance team is using it. In fact, the questions that were going to OpenAI was make me look good in front of my boss. Product manager was like, he doesn't want to write PRD. He's throwing the specs he's giving the code to it that the engineers have given and say, reverse engineer the product requirements document from this. All this was happening. I won't tell who, because, engineers are engineers, humans are humans. And OpenAI is extraordinarily happy, right? Who got the bill? Me. I mean, the company, $500,000. We're like, no, this is crazy, right? This is just not at all scalable, sustainable. So we wrote our own LLM, again, out of need, LLM observability to say, are people randomly using this? Is company data being sacrificed? I don't want to send company confidential information. Imagine the finance team sending our financials to ChatGPT even before we've announced it in Wall Street, right? Some other guy will query ChatGPT saying, hey, what is Rakuten's Q3 numbers? And it'll give it to it, man. Or at least the way they were running it before. So we had to write looking for security, for constraints, for costs, profanity, a lot of these things we had to develop. And now we have deployed these tools because I can't just rely on human beings to be quote unquote sustainable. So you have to attack it at a culture level and at a tools and systems level.
How does the future look like here, like especially next 3-5 years, from whatever you are doing on GPUs and especially with AI and AI ops?
See, for us, things like definitely for the future, right? Healthcare is going to be very big. We are already using AI in healthcare. You know that we deal with photoimmune therapy based solutions for head and neck cancer. It's fantastic. It's like instead of getting people to go through chemo for a long time.
That's a Rakuten Medical.
Rakuten Medical, right? How do you use body's own immune system? So the whole challenge with cancer is that your immune cells are sleeping a lot of the time. They're not awake. That self-drive we spoke. Right? When they've become lazy, even though they see the cancer cell, it's not able to detect it's a cancer cell. So it's sleeping. So with immune therapy, you're basically retraining the body's killer cells, which is the immune cells, to understand that these are cancer cells. They're killing you so that it goes after that cancer cell. And though we are already using a lot of AI in figuring out what's the best way to train the body's own immune system to go after the cancer cells, things like that. Again, as I told you, robots, I'm extremely excited about robotics for the future. Not just in terms of, we are already using robots for delivery in Japan for e-commerce, right? Because the guys that are driving the truck, they're already in their 60s. Imagine lifting the heavy box and going to the 27th floor to deliver something. So we have robots accompanying these drivers that will go, he'll just drive there, it'll take it out, walk up, go and deliver it, and it'll come back. So these are things that will explode. Of course, that will extend with Tesla and all these guys. Automated cars, automated trucks, automated robots. I'm pretty sure already Elon Musk is saying in the next 2 years, personalized robots will be around $10,000. Right. So for many of us who may have older parents living by themselves in smaller towns, things like that, having a personal safety robot there to take care of them, when they need things like that, I think this will explode as well. And finally, I would say embeddable GPUs, embeddable AI. Right. As I see in the next 5 years, your refrigerator will have GPU and an AI which tell you when milk is over, when it'll tell you that you haven't been eating broccoli for the last 3 weeks. You've been gorging on all pasta, man. This is not good for you. What are you doing? So your fridge will become your own doctor. So, these kind of things are very, very exciting the way I look at it going forward, right? Consumer side, healthcare side, motility, transportation, robotics.
So definitely, I think it's going to it's pretty much going to change even how we live. It's already changing the way we even interact with people, the way we work. I think as you mentioned about robotics and all of it coming, so there's a lot that we are going to see in next 5 to 10 year time frame. Great. So I think what comes out from this is largely that it's a good time. So talking to you, I realized that it's only not a startup like us who is building things, larger enterprises. You are also looking at where there are opportunities to build things and go out. I think that's a key takeaway. That's what I started with, that we should definitely look at building things, because that's where real opportunity is. And of course, while we are building, let's be open to that we are solving real problems closer to the customer, being close to the customer. And while we are doing all of it, let's also think in terms of how it all can be sustainable and that we whatever way we are doing it, we are able to do it smart in a smarter way, and that it can be sustainable. So super, thanks for it.